Hi there, my name is Carissa and welcome to Reformed Acres. Today we are going to be starting some seeds, and I would honestly love to have like a full day to start seeds, or a full like chunk of time. And I was trying to think of if there was a way that I was going to have that. There's not. I have 3 kids, 5 and under. I'm currently pregnant with my 4th son, and I just don't have a lot of time. I'm going to be taking you along the process of starting seeds and just kind of turn the camera on as I do this over the next couple days. Because with kids, I've got time to do one part of it here, one part of it there, and that's totally fine. By the end of the week, we will have these seeds started. So some things to note are that I am in Florida. I'm in zone 9B, and so our seasons are kind of different than everybody else. So right now it is January. It's the very beginning of January, and believe it or not, now is the perfect time to start seeds for spring. We don't really have a spring, summer, and then a fall season. Our season kind of starts with spring in the very beginning of the year. Then we have summer where things don't grow very well, and then we can grow over fall and over the winter. So right now in January is the perfect time to start things that need a little bit more time before they need to be transplanted, or things like melons that you really want to get going before the pest pressure gets intense, because that is definitely the issue here in Florida. So what I'm going to have time for this morning before it's time to get to animal chores and getting my yogurt in the Instant Pot and ready to go after it cools is I'm going to have some time to fill these with soil. And so I like to keep things started outside. I will actually put the plants on my lanai to grow, and I'll show that later in the video. Maybe today, maybe tomorrow, who knows, whenever I get it filmed, but you'll see it a little later on. But I love to use these pots. So what we need for seed starting, I'm using this table out here, and I have another one in my lanai. I like to do all of the filling of the pots out here just to reduce the amount of dirt, the amount of soil that's going to be in my lanai. It's pretty impossible to get rid of all of it, but this definitely reduces it. So I will fill everything out here and then transfer these pots filled with soil with no seeds in them to the lanai. And since my lanai is right outside my kitchen window, it's great because as long as these are filled with soil, it's so much easier to get them filled with the actual seeds and get them marked up and stuff like that. The hardest part for me is finding time to fill these with soil, because don't quote me, but I know I need to start 36 or 38 tomatoes and I think 16 peppers. So it's just quite a lot. And then this year I'm going to try to start cantaloupe. Normally I just direct sow that, but the area that I have for direct sowing that, it's not ready yet. We might be adding some mulch, and so I think it'll just be easier if we don't have tiny baby cantaloupe plants in the ground when we're trying to add some deep mulch in that area. So I will probably start those as well. So the things that I like to use for seed starting, it's very simple. I used to buy like the Happy Frog, really nice potting soil, and that stuff works great. I really like it. I think it's organic, or, probably better, than this Miracle Grow. But honestly, this is just so much more affordable. Like I said, we've got a lot of kids, a lot of mouths to feed. We're starting a lot of seeds, and we're using large pots. So we definitely, I believe that we'll go through one of these bags a season. So one of these bags in the spring and one in the fall. I have 2 because you never know. But I really like this. This is just the Miracle Grow potting mix, just your standard thing. I believe I got this one off of Amazon because the price was right. And you just kind of need to price check this, because sometimes they will really mark up potting soil and just make it ridiculous. But this was a really good deal. So I got 2 of them. And then I like these pots. So I believe these are 4-inch pots. I'll leave everything linked down below that I can, but the reason why I like these, because these are large, right? So you'll often see people starting seeds in like these type of cells. I know not this one in particular, and normally they have more spots than this. These are the burpee ones. I have this one and I have the blue one. I really love these for things like herbs. Sometimes I'll do flowers in them. That's really about it. You normally will see people starting in things like this, and I might actually use this for the cantaloupe, just because they're not going to get as big before I transplant them. But the reason why I don't do tomatoes and peppers in this is because the plant would not get big enough in this in order for me to transplant it into the garden. I want something a little bit bigger and hardier. But with kids and homeschooling and things to do like that, I don't want to spend the time to put them in here and then up pop them into something like this. So I just go ahead and start with a larger container. I understand that in the long run, I might use a little bit more soil doing something like this, but I like to do this because I'm going to put the seeds in here. I'm going to mark them up, and then they're good until transplanting. So I'm doing the work once and I'm done. So if you need to be a little bit more efficient like that, you just don't have a lot of time to be up potting or things like that, then this is a great option. Obviously, this takes up more space though than those trays do initially. So I will probably have to bring this table into the lanai as well, just because we have so many. So I definitely see that there's a benefit to the other way of doing things and up potting them. But for me, that's just, it's just not, things would never get up potted. I can barely get these seeds started at the time that I want to. So we are going to just do it this way. I do keep these like technically outside on my lanai. And I think the question there is just, why wouldn't I direct sow them into the garden? Or why wouldn't I just leave them on this table in the garden? And the reason for that is because weather is still pretty unpredictable here at this time. Are we going to get a frost? Maybe one, and maybe not at all, but we still are in the season for some heavy rains from time to time, and they can just really pelt these plants and not give them the nice, even watering that you might want for your tender little seedlings. So I have a hose hooked up in my lanai, and I will just water them on a very light shower setting or the mist setting if your hose has that. And then when it rains, because they're in the lanai under the screen, even a really heavy rain is really filtered out by that screen and keeps it really nice and soft for the plants. They're still getting plenty of sun because, you know, it's just screened, so it's totally open to the sun. They don't have to be hardened off, which is great because the lanai is a very close temperature to what it is outside. And I get to benefit from rain and not having to water them if it's raining. They're not cluttering my house. So it's really kind of like the best of both worlds for me. If I had the ability, or, you know, we had the money and the time to build something similar to kind of replicate that environment of the lanai, but out here, so I wasn't having to kind of put these pots of soil in a space where we like to hang out and kind of dirtying it up. If I could do that and save myself the time of walking them to the lanai and doing it in there, I definitely would. And it's something that's on our list, but you know how that goes. There's other important things on the list, and this works for now, so this is what we do. So I'm just filling all of these up. This bag of soil is pretty wet because it rained the last couple days, but even if this bag were dry, I don't wet the soil first. I know a lot of people suggest that. I don't really find it necessary, to be honest. So even if this were dry, I would just be filling these with soil, and I would worry about watering it after I put the seed in, because I'm doing a really gentle mist setting and a really gentle shower setting. If you don't have that ability on your hose or on your nozzle, then that might not be best. You might want to wet it first. I know a lot of people bottom water, especially if they're using like the big seed trays. That would be pretty hard for me to do in these. So I just water from the top. I don't have any issues on my seedlings, but you want to make sure that it's very, very gentle. So I'm going to get as many of these filled up as I can, and then I will do chores, and I will just get a big roasting tray or a big baking tray, and I will just stack as many of these as I can. It just makes it easier to carry them. I'll put as many as I can on that baking or roasting tray, and I will walk it over to the lanai once they're filled or I run out of room on the table. And then once they're in there, it is so much easier to get them started because, like I said, they're right there. I'm looking out the window. I can start a couple at a time, mark a couple at a time, and I'll show you what I use for marking it as well. But I can just do a little bit at a time when I have time, and I find that I'm so much more consistent that way. These tomatoes and peppers, we will get them going, and because they're on the lanai and we have such nice weather, to be honest, for January, I think it's going to get up to like the 60s today, which for most places is really nice weather in January. My seeds grow pretty fast. They will grow faster in the fall. So in the fall, we start our tomatoes and peppers in July. so around July 4th weekend, and they grow much faster then because it's warmer. But here it should take them around this time 4, 5, maybe 6 weeks before I transplant them, but it's usually about 4 or 5 weeks at this time, and then they'll be ready to go in the garden. I know that this might seem a little bit crazy of timing, but we are definitely backwards in Florida, so I'm just going to get these filled up, and then I will see you when we are transferring these to the lanai. Well, I didn't mean to, but I think that I pretty accurately predicted that I wasn't going to have time to get all of my seed starting done in one day. And wow, was that the truth. I told you that I would should easily have it all done by the end of the week. And I think that that's still what's going to happen. We actually had a family emergency, and it is 3 days later. Everything was upended. We were in the hospital. Everybody's fine. Everything's good, which praise God, that's so wonderful. And we can kind of get back to normal. But yes, it is 3 days later. And so that is why I do these things in batches, because you just never know. Or that's why I have to do them in batches. Okay, so I've got a baking sheet. This is what I use to just carry things over to the lanai. This is a lot of seeds, obviously, or a lot of seed containers. So if I were carrying them one by one, it would just be a whole big thing. And I discussed earlier why I do this, and it's just because I want to minimize the amount of dirt in the lanai. It's impossible to do that completely, but that's always the goal. This is actually a great day to be getting the seeds in here if I can manage to do that, which I think I'll be able to, because that's kind of the easy part, but we'll see. But this is a good weekend, and of the week into the weekend is actually Thursday today. This is a great time to be doing this, whether or not I get the seeds in there today or a different day, because we're going to be getting a lot of rain. So this is about how much I can comfortably fit on here. I might be able to, yeah, I'll double stack them because there's nothing in them. There's no seeds in them, so it's not really a problem. And so I will just transfer this over. I would say we'll be taking 3 trips. And yeah, I'll show you what we're working with over there. I will eventually, once I get all these over, need to also move the table over, because what I don't want some of the plants down below getting less sunlight than the plants up top. So I prefer to have them all on the top row, but of course they're not all going to fit on the top. So we'll transfer these over, and then I'll show you the setup that we have in the lanai and talk about what we're going to do next. Here's our second trip. Just as I said, I figured it would take 3, and it will. We have just a couple more. But yeah, this is how I carry it in. And then I'm just packing these as closely together as I can, just to fit as many as I can on here. And I really just try to keep it looking neat. Like I said, this is a space where my family will hang out as the weather is nice. And so, yeah, it looking nice and neat is important to me, for sure. So this is all that I have left. I actually do think that because I'm going to be doing cantaloupe here, and I could technically direct sow those, they're a little less high stakes to have transplanted. They actually don't recommend to be transplanted. I'm just trying it. I do actually think that I'm going to keep this one here in the garden. And so I don't think I'm going to bring out this additional table just yet. I'll save myself the work. And these should fit just fine on the one table that we have on the lanai. So looking at the time, I am pretty sure that that's all I'm going to have time for today. So the saga continues. I will see you guys back here tomorrow or the next day, because I've got to get dinner going. But this is a realistic look at what it's like to start seeds as a busy mom. And maybe other people can do this in one day, but that is just not where I'm at this week. So yeah, I will see you on another day as we get the seeds in here and I show you how I label. So the next thing that we need to do before we get our seeds in the containers is to label the markers. And I like to do this ahead of time just so I can plop the seed in, plop the marker in. I like to get as much done as I can in the house, or like I said, in batches, just because who knows when I'll get to the next step. So the thing that I like to use, if I can, so I have, goodness, my kids are leaving all kinds of toys for me to trip on. But I do have these, like these type of markers that just come from, you know, I think these came with the seed containers. And then, of course, you can just buy these. But I find that the sun can oftentimes bleach these out. and you might not be able to see what you wrote on them. So I don't love them for that reason. Also, you can reuse them. So you can do one season on one side and then flip them for the next season, but then that's about it, and then they're toast. So the thing that I prefer to use are popsicle sticks, and I will leave this package linked below. This came with 200 pieces, so it definitely lasts me at least 2 seasons, and maybe more depending on what I'm planting. But I like these because they're compostable or compostable. You can put them in the compost. So I definitely love these for that. And to be honest, I don't put them in the compost. When I go to transplant into the garden, I will actually just, I'll transplant the plant and then I'll just toss it in the bed. And it will break down eventually. So I don't worry about it. So I love these for that because there's no waste involved in that. And then of course you can use your seed containers over and over and over. All right, so what I did is I just made 2 lists, and let me see if you can see these. Yes. So I made 2 lists. These are my tomatoes. And so I did indeterminate and determinate, and I wrote out how many of each I need to do. And it's really important to label indeterminate and determinate because I'm going to want to label that on the popsicle stick because I want to know which one of these needs to get planted by my trellises because they're going to get really big, and which one of these can just be planted in the middle of the bed and I'll use a stake to keep them up or something like that. So I labeled how many of each, and then I did the same thing for the peppers. And so yeah, I'm doing habanero, 4 of those, 2 poblanos, 6 of the lilac bell peppers. Those are actually one of my favorites from last season. And then 2 of like a red type. I think I have a YOLO Wonder or a big California red. I don't know which one I'll use. And then for the tomatoes, the ones I'm planting are 6 of the large red cherries. I love having those. The fruits that they give are really big. It has to be the large red cherry variety. It's my favorite. 10 of the Amish paste, my favorite indeterminate variety. And then I'm going to do 2 each of some that I've maybe tried before and don't love or haven't tried before. And so yellow pear, mortgage lifter, and then an indeterminate San Marzano. And then for determinates, I want to plant 16 determinate plants, and I'm just going to do 8 each, 1 of Aroma, 1 of a San Marzano, just to make it easy. So that's what I'm doing. I'm going to be labeling my popsicle sticks, and then I will see you guys back on the lanai when it is time to actually stick these and the seeds in the pots, and then we will be done with our long seed starting week. All right, so I have all of my stuff down here, the popsicle sticks, the seeds, and we're just going to start going by group to make it as fast as possible. I've got everything grouped up, so this should go quickly. I won't make you sit through the whole thing, but I did want to talk about a couple things. So it has been raining for, I don't know, not a couple days in a row. Right now I am planting the San Marzano determinates, and I have 8 of these that I'm wanting to plant. So I'm just kind of making a small divot with my hand, with my finger, very lightly into these 8 containers. And so these tomato seeds are really small. I don't know if you can see that. They're very, very small. So you don't need much depth with these. You don't want to cover them too much, because if you cover them too much with soil, then they're not going to have the energy that they need to get to the top. If you cover them with too little, they might get washed away in a rain or something like that. So I think it is double the depth, or sorry, double the width, double the size of the seed is how you want to plant it. But regardless, you can look that up. But regardless, these are small, so we don't want to plant them super deep. So I'm just doing a little divot in each of these 8, and then I am going to drop in 2 or 3, which I know for a lot of people seems kind of wasteful. But I had really good success last season with tomatoes, and I think, well, with just starting things in general. And I think one of the reasons is just because I overplanted. I think if you are busy, I'm a busy mom, but if you work outside the home and you're just busy and you don't have a ton of time to dedicate to seeing if things germinate and resowing, just overplant. Just drop a few more seeds in the hole than you need, because then you can be pretty sure that you're going to get some germination. So I have those all in there. I'm not going to cover them yet. I want to go ahead and grab my markers, because I have a tendency to, once I cover them, I immediately forget what I put where. And so I am just going to stick these popsicle sticks at the edge of these cups. And these are the San Marzano. These are the determinants. So for these, I didn't put an I next to SM, but on the indeterminate, the two indeterminate ones that I have, I did put one just to differentiate between which ones are determinate and which are indeterminate. So that is honestly it as far as seed starting. Now I'm just going to kind of push. So I made the divot. And so from the higher part of that hole, I'm just kind of pushing the soil over. I'm not compacting it massively hard. I'm just getting them covered and kind of tapping it in. Like I said, this is already wet. This soil is already wet. If it weren't, I would still put the seeds in. I would put them in dry. I wouldn't wet them ahead of time. I know people do that and they like it. I've just never done that, and it's been fine. And then I will get one of our smaller hoses. I will bring it in here into the lanai, hook it up, and then when it's time to water, I will just top water all of them. Like I said, I don't bottom water, just on a light shower or a mist, and you're good to go. I am going to repeat this process for all of them, and then I will show you guys how everything's looking at the end. I'm very excited. It's always a very satisfying feeling to see all of these planted and to know you don't have to do that again. And there we go. Everything is all planted up. I had one container left that I didn't have a plan for. Not sure how that happened. So I went ahead and just planted an extra habanero since it was right next to the ones I was planting. But we are done. So we will not have to start any more tomatoes or any more peppers, Lord willing, for this season. We won't have to start them again until July for fall season. So this is excellent. This is a huge, huge win. This is something that takes me a really long time to get started on, and I kind of dread. It's one of my least favorite homesteading chores, but this is how you can really save some money on your produce, is by starting your own veggies. I will leave everything linked down below that I used, the popsicle sticks, the containers, anything that I mentioned, in case there are some things that you want to get for yourself. I hope that you guys are having a great day. I hope that this encouraged you to get out and start your own seeds whenever it's time for you in your area. And until next time, I will see you later in the next video.